Welcome to the CLS Market Review for the second quarter of 2014. I'm CLS analyst Sierra Morris. In this quarter's outlook, we'll address our stock and bond market outlooks, plus address additional investor questions, including how upcoming midterm elections might impact the markets, which sectors tend to do best when short-term interest rates start to rise, and the behavior of high-quality stocks. To begin, please welcome CLS Chief Investment Officer Rusty Vanneman to review our stock market outlook. Rusty?
Thank you, Sierra. In short, we are less optimistic than we have been regarding the stock market. There are several reasons why. First, earnings growth has been solid, but it is expected to slow. Second, valuations tend to suggest that the overall market is a bit expensive. Third, by many measures, investor sentiment is overly optimistic, which typically suggests below-average returns moving forward. Let's quickly review these first two factors in a bit more detail: earnings growth and valuations. Earnings growth has been strong in recent quarters, and in recent years for that matter. At the end of the fourth quarter from last year, earnings for the S&P 500 were just over $100 a share, which was a 16% gain from the year before. This is above the long-term average of 6% per year and above the long-term trend. In the first quarter, earnings growth decreased slightly to 15% year over year. And as second quarter earnings season starts, earnings expectations are expected to slow again, though still show double-digit growth at 14%. By year's end, earnings growth is expected to dip below 10%. Add it all up, while earnings growth is still strong, it is declining. This may be a headwind for the market. It also suggests that more defensive sectors, including higher quality stocks which are less sensitive to economic weakness, could outperform. When it comes to valuations, as of the end of June, the earnings yield, in other words, earnings per share divided by price per share, for the U.S. was 5.3%. The dividend yield, meanwhile, was 2%. Both of these valuations are below their 10-year averages, suggesting the market is not on sale. Other valuation measures, including book yield and cash flow yield, suggest the same.
A common question we get in the months leading up to the election is what impact might the elections have on the financial markets? No matter one's political persuasion, there is a general agreement by many market participants that there is indeed a pattern that emerges around the presidential cycle. For more on this, let's turn to CLS analyst Joe Smith.
Thanks, Sierra. There does appear to be a market pattern that revolves around the presidential election cycle. In the next series of slides, we'll see a consistent pattern in stock market returns, whether we're just looking at data over the last 50 years or the last 100 plus years. First, why would stock market returns be impacted by the presidential cycle? Well, there are a few reasons cited. The strongest theory, however, is that monetary and fiscal policy tracks the presidential election cycle. In short, monetary and fiscal policy often becomes much more market-friendly in advance of presidential elections, which helps fuel market gains. And then it starts to fall after presidential elections, which in turn typically leads to market pressure until after the midterm elections. What we can see is that the stock market tends to essentially run in place during the back half of the first presidential year and into the second year, until a few months before the midterm elections. Is the current market environment sticking to this pattern? It basically has held to pattern until late last year. Instead of correcting, the stock market continued to climb higher. To hold to form, the stock market would have to falter this summer to catch up to the presidential stock market cycle. In the next chart, we'll see a notable pattern between large companies and small companies. Here we see smaller companies start to falter toward the back half of the first presidential year and continue losing ground until midterm elections. Why would this relationship persist? In general, during choppy or bear markets, small caps, which are more levered to overall market movement, typically underperform. In this case, the pattern seems to be working beautifully during the current cycle, even though the overall market hasn't stumbled yet. Next, let's look at the US dollar, which has an interesting pattern. The dollar typically gets stronger during the election year and into the first presidential year before falling over the other 2 years of the cycle. Why might this pattern work? Global dollars are chasing the attractive fiscal and monetary policy in anticipation of stronger asset prices, or running from unattractive fiscal and monetary policy in anticipation of weaker asset prices. The dollar is indeed loosely following the cycle that has been established since the 1970s. For it to persist, though, it would mean more dollar weakness until year-end. For U.S. investors, a weaker dollar would generally mean that international stocks would outperform domestic stocks.
Thank you, Joe. Another investor question of late concerns the expectations of the Federal Reserve raising interest rates in the first half of 2015 and how this might impact the stock market. This table looks at which sectors tend to do best and worst in the years before the first Fed rate hike. Energy typically has the highest probability of a gain, 88%, based off of history going back nearly 40 years with an average return of 21%. Technology follows closely behind with a 75% probability of a gain and an average return of 22%. Utilities typically do the worst with gains only 13% of the time and an average return of 1%. Financials have gained 25% of the time with an average return of 6%. Currently, CLS portfolios in the aggregate are overweight technology and energy sectors and underweight financials and utilities. Speaking of the Federal Reserve, what is our outlook for the bond market moving forward? To help us out with this, let's bring in CLS analyst Josh Jenkins. Josh?
Thanks, Sierra. Even though interest rates remain low by historical standards, they have fallen in 2014. Instead of preparing for a rising rate environment, should we actually be preparing for a falling rate environment? As investors, we should recognize anything is possible. Rates could fall. In fact, yields on 10-year government bonds are lower in many other countries. That said, our view is that higher rates are still more likely in the back half of 2014 and in the years ahead. Not only is the Federal Reserve expected to raise rates in 2015, as Rusty mentioned, but the economic data is improving, particularly in the employment data. In addition, core inflation numbers are stabilizing and rising. This table shows a series of inflation numbers. In short, inflation remains low, but it does appear to be stabilizing. It would make sense for overall inflation to start rising given recent housing price gains, continued employment growth, and higher commodity prices. Never mind that extremely low interest rates themselves often stimulate inflationary pressures.
Thanks, Josh. Heading into the second half of 2014, we are retaining the core CLS investment themes that we have built all CLS portfolios around. To review, please welcome back our Chief Investment Officer, Rusty Vanneman. Rusty?
Let's quickly review each of them and then dive a bit deeper into one that we continue to have a high degree of conviction in, though it has lagged the overall market in 2014. First, innovation. This theme has three aspects. First, it's important to remember that innovation often creates the positive surprises that push the economy higher. Not all surprises are negative. Second, we believe that growth-oriented companies, including many in the technology sector, will benefit from increased corporate spending. Third, we are attracted to many of the new ETFs being created, particularly many of the factor-based ETFs known as smart beta or strategic beta ETFs. Next, high quality. This is a theme we have carried over from 2013 and in which we continue to strongly believe. We like companies that have relatively stable profitability, strong balance sheets, and higher dividend growth. These companies should do better in a slower growth environment, which is expected for the back half of 2014, but should also generally hold up better in volatile markets. For more on our high-quality theme, and particularly how it might be expected to perform in various market environments, let's turn to CLS analyst Koshti Edis, reporting from our trading desk floor.
Thanks, Rusty. To understand how high-quality equities typically behave in different market cycles, let's review the following table comparing the performance of the high-quality index versus the low-quality index in cyclical bull and bear markets. In the table, quality is based on the S&P Common Stock Quality Rankings assigned by S&P analysts. This table represents an aggregate of all of the high-quality stocks versus an aggregate of all low-quality stocks. The data shows performance in the 8 cyclical bull markets since 1982 and 9 cyclical bear markets since 1981. On an overall basis, although low quality has outperformed in bull markets, high quality has outperformed in bear markets. When we break up the market cycles into thirds and look at the averages, similar results are seen. In the written version of our quarterly market review, we investigate a quality factor ETF whose underlying index has historically outperformed both the high quality and the low quality indices, as well as the S&P 500 in all bull and bear markets, leading to the notion that not all quality is created equal. To summarize, it is reasonable to expect that high-quality stocks will generally lag, though participate in bull markets, but will outperform in bear markets.
Thanks, Kosha. Good stuff. For our third theme, we believe that strategically incorporating international securities in a portfolio provides additional opportunities to enhance returns and reduce portfolio risk. In addition, many international equity markets are sporting far more attractive valuations than the U.S., suggesting increasing exposure to global equities, which we have. Our holdings to international, particularly emerging markets, explain a lot about our performance, both in the past and likely into the future. And finally, active diversification. We believe that bond market returns will likely be below average in the years ahead. In turn, we are looking to actively diversify our equity-heavy portfolios by actively managing our fixed income holdings and increasingly moving into varying asset classes, including alternatives. Thanks for watching. Stay balanced.
Thank you, Rusty. With that, we conclude our update for the second quarter of 2014. Our next quarterly market review will debut this October. Also, check back with us every Tuesday for our weekly and monthly market reviews. Each week, members of our portfolio management team will provide insight on our positioning and how we're specifically applying our investment themes. For all of us here, I'm your host, Sierra Morris. Thank you for watching, and thank you very much for your time and trust in CLS Investments.